Hey everybody, this is Mike. Mike, say hi to everybody.
Hi to everybody.
You know, Mike and I have been working together now for pretty near a year.
Just about.
And we have never played guitar together until recently. And when we did, I thought, well, shoot, fire, call the possum lawyers. I don't know what that means. I just made that up. Anyway, I just thought, well, Dad, no, I mean, I can't even talk about it. We hadn't even played music together. We've been working together for this long. How is that even possible?
Well, we have other jobs to do.
We have other jobs. We have obligations. We have families. We have life. And if you're watching this, you might be out there and you know somebody like, man, I just need to get together with that guy. We just need to do a little bit of playing. But you don't know what to play. Has that happened to you where you've been in a situation where you're like, what are we going to do? You know, well, no more. That situation is over, friends, because what we're going to do is we're going to give you how to play a blues and E. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you some licks, some turnarounds, but probably even more important than all of those things, we're going to give you some philosophy on how we approach these things, right?
It's a big deal. It's a big deal to know how to, properly present yourself but not step on any toes, and you want to listen as much as you want to play, and it's a fine balance to try to strike, And so hopefully we'll have some ideas that'll help you.
Well, I mean, number one musician skill of all time is just listening, right? So, without further ado, get your guitar out, get it tuned up. We're tuned to E, sounds like this. And we're going to play some blues in E. Okay, so blues in E, if you don't know, you're like, you lost me already, Nate. Well, let me tell you. A 12-bar blues only involves 3 chords. And there's lots of different forms out there. And in fact, at this point, you can just Google 12-bar blues. But what we're going to show you is just kind of what we did the other day. And the other day when we got together, we happened to be doing like some product demo stuff. I mean, imagine this, working in a music store and not being able to play music with somebody.
Phone rings, you got to answer it. You got to sell guitars to people. You got to do your stuff.
That's okay. But we had this opportunity. And so we just started playing a pretty basic blues. And so kind of a great intro to the blues before we get into licks, before we get into turnarounds, before we get into any of the other stuff that may be a little juicier. It's just this kind of... So here's what you're going to do. And Mike, feel free to jump in at any point in time. I'm taking kind of the fatty part of my hand, right? And I'm resting it on the E string and the A string. And I've got my index finger on the 2nd fret of the A. And I'm taking my ring finger and I'm putting it on the 4th fret of the A. And if you think of this as off, stay with me. And then this is on, off, off, on, off, off, on, off, off, on, off. Now, hold on. Before you go, well, wait a minute, that don't sound right. Sit there and do that for, I don't know.
5 minutes? See what happens?
Yeah, I was gonna play like 15 times.
15 times.
Maybe who cares if it takes 22 times, right?
Yeah.
But just sit there and and then once you feel like it starts to get comfortable. Now when I get to this spot here, what I'm doing is I'm doing a down, up, down stroke. And this is something that you should just practice with dead strings. I'm just barely touching the strings to get this muted effect. And if you just go down, up, it's going to sound like this. But I'm trying to play a shuffle kind of rhythm. So that means that first downstroke is a little heavier than the rest of them.
Correct. It almost sounds like you're playing a drum.
Which is the effect we're going for, right? And so we're trying to get this almost like this is the snare drum.
The snare drum.
Thwack. Thwack, right? And so then when I add this thing to it. Now let's see what old brother Mike's doing. So what are you doing there? That you just got a basic E chord. So what do you got going on there?
Playing a basic E chord. So what it is, I got my index finger on the 1st fret on the G string, so I'm hitting the G sharp.
Little love me 2 times, right?
Yeah. It's all right there. It's all in the blues. It is.
Yeah.
But it's really just hammering on that G and then hitting the open B string right there. So it's...
Now what's cool about that, this whole point of what we're doing here, I don't know if we got enough, I mean Is that enough coffee for both of us? We'll have to share.
I guess so.
Just like when you're playing the blues together, the whole point is when you're playing, doesn't matter what kind of music it is. We're just using the blues because it's kind of an easy thing for everybody to jump into. Because the blues sort of informs and frames rock and roll and country. And
it's all based off of that.
Yeah, and so with that, one of the things that you want to adopt in your playing is quickly finding a way to accompany others. And I thought that was really cool. We did not plan this. This may come as a shock to you, but there's very, very little planned on Chords Coffee. In fact, this making the coffee probably involves the most planning.
Yeah.
Anyway,
should have planned on some more water, but that's okay.
It's okay. Chords and coffee. But so while I'm doing this, and he started doing that little 2 times thing. Now let's go to the A chord. And I'll make some charts for you. Back to E. Here comes the turnaround. So when you're sitting down there and you're playing the blues for the first time, you're going to have an E chord, you're going to have an A chord, and you're going to have a B7. And when we get to that A, it's the exact same thing that we did a second ago. But this time we're going to have the open A string with the index finger on the second fret of the D. So the same off, on, fourth fret of the D, and then off, back to there. And that's just a little thing I made up just so we can talk about it. But you can use your ring or your pinky. Sometimes my pinky gets engaged where it shouldn't. Tons of nose picking accents because of
Happens,
that.
yeah.
Hey! Anyway, right back into the E, right? Same thing. So you probably already know this, right? And then you know the B7, it's just going to be your middle finger on the second fret of the A, with your index finger on the first fret of the D, and then your ring finger on the second fret of the G. And you can leave it just that much and play everything except for the high E, or you can go ahead and throw your pinky on the second fret of the high E. And then to the A7. Well, I like to do this one because you like to hear that little movement in there like that. And this is just going to be index finger on the second fret of the D, open G string, middle finger on the second fret of the B. And then I like to use my pinky. What do you like to use?
You know, back and forth. I'll use it without it. It depends on the song.
That's right.
Depends on the song.
But third fret of the high E nonetheless, either which way. Right? And then back to the E. And then we turn it around. Back to that B7. And that's just a very quick and dirty overview of what those chords are all about. Now, where the real artistry, if I can use that term, where the real, probably better would be like the real personality comes into play, is what kind of chord voicings do you use, and how do you accompany?
Thank you, my friend.
Here, you take the.
Here, here's your cup. I'll
drink out of my mom's mug. My mom made that mug.
Oh.
Yeah. What kind of chords do you use when you're accompanying somebody, right?
Yes.
And what kind of voicings, and how much are you giving them? In other words, are you making it easy for them?
Cheers.
Are you making it easy for them to sound good? I mean, let's just stick on that point for a second. That's real accompaniment. Are you making it easier for the singer or the instrumentalist to sound good? Would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, and I think that's why, starting with that easy little is great, because technically you could sit there and play the whole chord. You can get that same kind of feel, but you're giving them all 6 of those notes there, all 6 of those things coming out, and sometimes staying out of the way can be important. It's like you don't want to come off swinging with everything. You want to try to have a little bit of dynamic build to it. And so it's one thing I understood when I was young, but it took me a while to actually implement, is less is absolutely more. And then when you do something, even if it's like, oh, that's not a very cool lick. Well, if you haven't been doing it for the whole song, it opens it up and it makes everybody look at you in turn because you've presented another layer. It's about building that 7-layer dip, that cake, whatever you want is just to stack it all up. And so, I think it's important to start small, start simple, start like you're playing a drum, and branch out from there, I think. You can definitely come with a lot of different shapes, a lot of different ideas, and give room to everybody that you're trying to play with, room to do their thing, and inspire them to maybe do a little less, and everybody does just a little bit. And then you have that times 3, 4, 5 people. It's a lot of fun noise going on without it being a lot of noise going on.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting, and I'm gonna go off track here just for a minute, and it's up to you to bring me back.
I'll bring you back.
Okay.
I'll bring you in.
So, you know, when you're accompanying somebody, let's say you're at the music store. This is one more reason why you should go to music stores. Obviously, we have our favorite.
Wink.
But that being said, this is another reason why you should go hang out at a music store, because you're going to run into people that you can play with. It doesn't have to be a guitar player. It could be a keyboard player. My good buddy Emmett, he and I actually met at the music store. He was over there playing keyboards and just grooving unto himself. Really? And then I started just kind of, you know, adding some stuff on top of that. Next thing you know, he noticed that I was playing. And then he like looked at me and he was like, wait a second. And now here we are all these years later.
That's awesome. I did not realize that.
Yes,
that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
So just for fun, let's just take a little something here. Let's take let's take an E minor thing here. And let's just take this little BB box. Okay? What do I mean about BB box? Well, it's a E minor pentatonic scale, and a lot of times, you know, when people think about BB King, they, you know, all that kind of stuff, and that's a very poor representation of it. B.B. King, his contribution to music, and especially blues music, but just phraseology that you can do on a guitar is profound, to say the least.
Truly is.
Yeah, but a lot of times people refer to this part of the pentatonic scale, as far as the geography of it, as the BB box.
It's the BB
right.
box.
And so we're going to do E minor pentatonic, since we're doing this E stuff here. This would be nice. So what we got is middle finger, 4th fret of the G, and then you got index finger on the 3rd fret of the B, and then ring finger on the 5th fret of the B again, and then index finger on the 3rd fret of the high E, and then ring finger on the 5th fret of the high E, and then walk that back down. And so Mike, if you play that, and like pretend that's all you can play, those are the only notes you can play.
Well, it's not far off.
But pretend that's all you got.
Okay.
Okay. And I just want to illustrate a couple examples. So what I'm trying to illustrate here is how accompaniment can change or impact, or how about this, sort of frame these colors differently.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
So
very
that's
well
all
said.
the colors you're painting with. I'm going to accompany. So
Okay.
first of all, we got this little... So now I'm going to do the same kind of thing, just a little jazzier. So now, same notes, completely different thing. Isn't that interesting?
It works, man.
It does.
It's science. Oh, I got out of my box.
And there's a danger note in there, but with that, I thought you did a pretty good job. We'll talk about that in a second. Now, what about one more? What's interesting, you notice how it takes you a second for your ear to kind of recalibrate into the new framing of
does.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then once your ear recalibrates to it, it's like, oh, okay, oh, I get it.
But that's a good thing because you're listening.
Yeah.
You're paying attention to what's going on, whoever's kind of driving the boat, so to speak, and you're following along in your water ski.
But also, and by the way, beautiful job. Following along
Oh,
your water ski.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
well, that's what you do
Well,
when you
he's
have
got
water
ropes,
skis. You just follow and you got a rope. It's not the boat. Yeah, anyway, that being said, when you are learning something new with your hands and you're learning it on this thing, I don't know about you, but a lot of times in my life when I've been trying to learn, especially a theoretical concept, which is ultimately what we're talking about right now, there's been kind of like a little bit like, I don't know if I believe this yet. Yeah. Like, because it didn't sound right to my ear. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like just a second ago when we got to that, and so if you're playing a C minor chord here, and I'm playing the BB box, and if I hit that note, that's sour. I've set you up for failure.
That's majoring it rather than minoring it.
Exactly. But the thing is that you avoided that. You and so you got off of it really quick, right? And so
that doesn't work.
Right, but what's interesting is sometimes a scale works fantastic, and there might be just one note that you need to either avoid altogether in that particular circumstance for that particular song and that particular moment, or it might be the kind of thing where instead like not only avoiding it, but maybe like there's a great quote from Victor Wooten. He says, "You're always a half step away from the right note." Which is really interesting because if you think about that, in that case, it's literally that. But here, play any note on the guitar, just any note. I'm not even going to tell you. Just 1, 2, ready, go.
That was 2 notes.
No, just one note. 1, 2, ready, go. And what note is that?
That is a C sharp.
Play it again. Sounds okay now, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. Just like a few times, it's like, wait, no, wait. Oh, it's okay.
It's in there.
Here's do it again. Here you go. Any note. You ready?
Okay,
Any
yes.
note. 1, 2, 3, go. Now what note is that?
E.
Play it again. One more time. And again. Because I'm actually playing
in there.
the E.
It's in there, yeah.
And that sounded rough, but like it's funny. Is that the reason I wanted to do that example? Is it's not what we're playing, it's how we're playing it. And did you notice when we were trying to make it right, we were both kind of easing into it?
It's the right note.
Right?
Yes.
Right, but it is. It's in the chord, right?
Yeah, it's right there.
Right. So sometimes, friends, it's not even what you're playing, because what you're playing may be actually right on paper. It's how you're playing it. And the only way to get your how in alignment with your what is that you have to practice it. And you also have to practice it with other people. Now, some of you right now, I can hear you, I can feel you. I have this power. It's a wonderful gift. Where you're going, Nate, I don't have time to play with other people. I work too hard. Or how about this? I'm driving a truck across country right now, and I don't see another person except to load and unload, or whatever the case may be. Well, there's a great thing called YouTube, and there's tons of accompaniment tracks, but also, I assure you, the more that you keep playing this, there will come an opportunity for you to play with some other people. Whether or not you accept that invitation is a different story. Is that too much truth?
No, that's a whole lot of truth. And at any level of player, can teach you something and open up doors. I mean, depending on how long you've been playing. I've learned, I think, literally from everyone that I've sat down and spent some time with too. And I think some of the most things I enjoyed learning was obviously licks and tricks from other guitar players, but playing with drummers and bass players and keyboard players, because they open up your mind into how they approach a song. I mentioned earlier, pretend you're a drum. When you don't know what to play, you're just keeping the rhythm right there with anything that's going on. And then you can watch some hands, you can listen to the groove, you can listen to what the keyboards guy's doing, and then you can jump in with that. You're like, I know what it is. Just never ends.
Very cool. Yeah. So with that, let's do a couple turnarounds and let's do a couple licks.
Okay.
So what's a good turnaround that you like to use?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the blues and E, I mean, it's we hit that standard one right at first, right? With the
yeah. So that one.
So
Do you do that with your index finger, or you do your two middle fingers, or how do you typically do it?
so I kind of look at it in my head. I'm playing an E7th chord, and so I'm just chromatically walking them back down to the E major chord, and then
yeah. So that's going to be index finger on the 3rd fret of the B, and then middle finger on the 4th fret of the G. And then open E on there?
Open E, or put your ring finger on the 4th fret on the high E. And then you're completing that kind of chord.
E7, yeah, and then you walk the whole thing down? Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a lot of different ways to bend.
Yeah, so you can do it with just the open E on everything. Maybe. There it is. Alright. But what you just did, what's kind of cool there is doing that. Also, you can do one of these jobbers here, where you've got your index finger is on the 2nd fret of the D string. You're going to have your pinky on the 4th fret of the high E. Your middle is going to be on the B string 3rd fret. And then your ring finger is going to be on the 4th fret of the G. Now, just leave your index finger where he's at. And then, so now you got like this G diminished, right? And then down there. That's another kind of like little play on that. So you got that E7 to that G diminished, and then this A minor 6. Because you got that. And all that is again, we've got the 2nd fret on the D string. This time I'm using it with my middle finger, then 2nd fret on the G, and then 1st fret on the B, and then pinky is on the 2nd fret of the high E. Yeah. And play the little BB box we're just playing there. Listen how this sounds. It sounds so like this is done. It's maybe a little extra, tarragon in that or something.
Tarragon in there. But it's all in there, yeah. And it's those little things that I think when you're jamming with people, that's the universal, in some ways, turnaround. I don't want to say generic, but universal. People understand where you are. So if you're still jamming, you maybe feel like you're getting lost, it can bring you back home. You always know when you're back at the top of the song, you're back at the one.
That's so good.
Yeah.
So also while you're playing, by the way, there's a great, I say great, let me humble myself up a little bit. There's a pretty dang good dominant 7 lesson on Chords and Coffee.
Yes, there is.
Where we go over a ton of E dominant 7 chords. But I think it'd be really good right now for us just to maybe throw out a few, because there was some neat things that you did. So we did a couple turnarounds. Show me some of the tricks that you do on some of these chords that we're playing.
Well, so we mentioned kind of the Folsom Prison version.
Oh, it's like a little. So you guys, that kind of thing.
Yeah, slide up to a.
Yeah, that's cool. So we're on the G note on the B string of the 8th fret, slid up to the 9th fret, and then playing that 7th fret of the high E.
And if you notice, that means, I technically only have one lick that I play over and over, because it's this.
We're back to Love Me Two Times.
We're back down to Love Me Two Times. So you're playing it different, you're voicing it different. So you feel like you got all these things in your arsenal, you're just playing the same lick over and over. That's me anyway.
But here's the thing. The benefit of that is that when you're playing a blues or anything blues based, and you're playing something that's a dominant 7 tonal center, and you're establishing the minor third and the major third coexisting together, what you're really doing is establishing this chord.
Yeah.
Right? Because this chord, exactly, the E7 sharp 9, because you've got the major third and the minor third. So listen. It's like, I don't know about you, but at work, like I went through a phase, and actually I say a phase, it happens every now and then, but I accidentally hit the car alarm button on my key fob. Pants are too tight, Mike. Anyway. But you get this out in the parking lot, and like, what idiot's doing that? And I'm like, dude, my car's just rocking out. likely excuse. Anyway, but that's cool. More on that in that dominant 7 lesson that we talked about, how those two things coexist together. What about on the 4 chord? You got anything spicy you like to do on that?
I stay in the 7ths a lot with some of that stuff, you know. Like you said, they get you everywhere you kind of want.
I feel like I've heard you do that.
Well,
the little Clapton-y thing.
There's the Clapton-y thing.
And by the way, he didn't make that up. He got that off of somebody.
No, he did not. But that is really that is a great one, because you're up there on the 4th, on the A, and it would just be basically coming from the B flat down to the A. So
that right there is worth the price of admission. That little lick. Do it again. Something like that. Yeah. So what Mike was just doing is he's on the high E and he's on the 7th fret. So 7, 6, 5, and then give her a little shimmy, a little wiggle,
little wiggle on the finger there.
Let her know you love her, and then sliding on the 6th fret of the G. Again, that minor third, the C to the C sharp, and then to the 5th fret of the B. And then what'd you do?
Just a little bend up.
So hear that in context, right on that 4 chord, ready, yeah. Yeah!
Bluesy.
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 You know, the reason blues works for that quick impromptu or I don't know what else to play kind of jam is that most everybody has heard some iteration of that.
Correct.
Most everybody kind of instinctively knows what to do with that. But also, again, if you're playing with somebody that hasn't been playing as long as you, or maybe both of you are kind of in that same boat where you're both like, I don't know what to do. I mean, you can figure out a blues or figure out something bluesy. I think the big hurdle, especially if you're an adult and you're watching this and you're brand new to playing, is that when you're a kid, you're quite content to be in the garage going, let's do that for an hour.
Big noise.
Right, and it's great. And I don't know about you, but I did that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And kind of still will, if somebody will let me. You know, if
Get
my wife is okay
my dog's
with it.
howling along
Exactly.
with me and stuff. It's pretty nice.
Don't feel weird, bad, or like that's a waste of time, because sometimes like playing something simple over and over again, or getting in the nooks and the cracks and the crannies of something familiar like a blues-based song, that's where you really discover some of the things end up being your personality, your touch, the way that you get tone out of the instrument. And boy howdy, that's all I want for you.
Yeah. I would say if there were a few good things that came out of the pandemic years ago, after not being able to practice or even get together with my friends or my bands or anything like that, I had to go in my room and just close the door and turn everything up. And it was out of necessity just to play more, because I realized I hadn't played for just that reason in a long time. I always have a gig, I got a rehearsal. I always have a reason to pick up my guitar, maybe not necessarily to go through the fundamental stuff, but that was kind of all I had left. And I felt like I unlocked a new level of myself during that time. You can kind of plateau after a while, it's hard as you've been playing for longer, you have more things that but it's hard to kind of find new things to learn from time to time. And so you discover those things about yourself by just sitting there messing with your gear, messing with your amp a bit, or just sitting there with an acoustic guitar and beating some of those rudimentary things into your head. You can level up again. And it's a big deal to kind of get to know yourself again, especially if you're, new to it, or even a player like myself who's been playing for a little while, and you got to kind of discover a new angle of what inspires you and makes you happy. you can play those same few licks over and over in different ways or different inflections on things, and it's like you learned a whole new thing.
Yeah, I love that.
But you're still just regurgitating something else. You know?
Right, right.
It's great. It's great.
I love that about music. I love that about guitar. I love playing with you.
Thank you, my friend. I'm happy we finally got to.
Yeah, thanks for being on Chords and Coffee. And I tell you what, if you get the chance to sit down at a music store or, you know, a family reunion, or even if, you know, you're out seeing a band and somebody calls you on stage and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? You should always have something like a blues backup in your quiver of arrows that you can shoot on a moment's notice. And most of all, be the kind of player. If you're watching Chords and Coffee, I really want this for you. Be the kind of player that's always encouraging other players. You know, Mike, when you and I played the other day, you did tons of cool stuff and you sound great and you have great tone in your hands. What's the truth?
Thank you.
And the thing is that when you pull that out of people, then Mike does that for me and pulls that out of me when we're playing together, right? It's an awesome thing, and I want encouragement to be part of our Chords and Coffee DNA, because that's what we're here to do. You know what? We're living life best we can with guitar in our hand.
Exactly right.
That's exactly right.
Exactly right.
Hey, we do this every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central Time. Friends, thank you for being on here this morning, and we will see you next week for yet another Chords and Coffee.
Thanks for having me, my friend.
Absolutely. Yep.